annals of Japan's rich and turbulent history, few names stand as tall and formidable as Oda Nobunaga. Revered and feared in equal measure, Nobunaga carved his name into the heart of the Sengoku period, an era defined by constant conflict and the relentless pursuit of power. A man of unparalleled military genius, he was both a visionary leader and a ruthless tactician. His strategies on the battlefield were nothing short of revolutionary, reshaping the very fabric of warfare in Japan. Yet, behind the steel of his katana and the clamour of his armies, Nobunaga was a complex figure, a leader driven by ambition, innovation, and an unwavering desire to unify a fractured nation under his banner. In this episode, we will embark on a journey through the life and legacy of Oda Nobunaga. We will trace the steps of his early life, uncovering the events that shaped the young Daimyo into the fearsome warrior he became. We will explore his meteoric rise to power, marked by a series of decisive and bloody battles that solidified his dominance over rival clans. Alongside his military conquests, we will delve into his groundbreaking reforms that sought to modernize Japan, challenging the old feudal order. However, as with all great figures, Nobunaga's story is not without its downfall. We will examine the treacherous betrayal that led to his dramatic demise, and reflect on the enduring legacy he left behind, a legacy that continues to echo through the ages. Before we dive into the intricate and captivating tale of Oda Nobunaga, allow me to welcome you to the ASMR History channel, where we blend the soothing art of ASMR with the fascinating narratives of history, bringing the past to life in a unique and relaxing way. So, find a place where you can truly unwind, settle into a comfortable spot, and let the stress of the day melt away. As you sit back and relax, allow the whispers of history to transport you to a time when warriors roamed the land, and one man dared to challenge the chaos of his world. To understand Nobunaga's rise to power, we must first look at the world he was born into, the Sengoku period, a time of relentless strife and upheaval that spanned nearly a century. Japan, once united under the Ashikaga shogunate, had splintered into a chaotic patchwork of warring states, each ruled by powerful daimyos, or feudal lords, who were locked in a brutal struggle for dominance. The authority of the central government had all but crumbled, leaving a power vacuum that sparked a vicious cycle of conflict. These daimyos, driven by ambition and the desire for greater territory, forged and broke alliances with startling speed, turning the landscape into a battlefield where treachery was as common as swordplay. During this era, known as the Warring States period, Japan was not a single unified nation, but rather a collection of fiercely independent provinces, each with its own ruler, army, and aspirations. The social order was in flux, as samurai warriors, once mere servants of the nobility, rose to positions of power and influence. The rigid hierarchy of the past began to erode as merit and martial prowess became the new currency of power. Loyalty, which had once been the cornerstone of samurai honour, became a mere commodity, bought and sold as easily as rice or silk. In this volatile environment, alliances were made out of necessity rather than trust, and betrayal could come from even the closest of allies. It was into this maelstrom of violence and political intrigue as an opportunity, a chance to reshape Japan according to his vision. From a young age, he exhibited a boldness and a strategic mind that set him apart from other leaders of his time. While others were content to fight for their own survival, Nobunaga harboured ambitions far greater. He sought to bring an end to the anarchy and forge a new order, one in which he would stand at the pinnacle of power. His emergence as a force of change in the land consumed by chaos was nothing short of revolutionary. Nobunaga's relentless pursuit of unification would set him on a path that would alter the course of Japanese history forever, as he sought to impose his will on a fractured nation and create a legacy that would endure through the ages. Oda Nobunaga was born in 1534 during one of the most tumultuous periods in Japan's history, in the Owari province, which is located in the central region of the country. His birth marked the arrival of a child who would grow into one of Japan's most formidable and influential figures. Nobunaga was born into the Oda clan, a family of moderate power and influence who ruled over a portion of Owari. The Oda clan, though not one of the most powerful daimyos of the time, held a crucial strategic position within the province, which placed them in the crosshairs of larger, more dominant clans. Nobunaga's father, Oda Nobuhide, was a minor warlord who struggled to maintain control over his territory while navigating the ever-shifting allegiances and rivalries that characterized the Sengoku period. Family dynamics within the Oda clan were complex, with multiple factions vying for power, and the pressure on Nobunaga as the heir apparent was immense from the moment of his birth. As a child, Nobunaga showed signs of the fiery and rebellious nature that would later define his rule. Unlike many young heirs of the time, who were groomed to be disciplined and reserved, Nobunaga exhibited a wild and unpredictable streak. He was educated in the martial and cultural traditions of the samurai, but his behaviour often defied the expectations placed upon him. Nobunaga was known for his unorthodox actions, earning him the nickname the Fool of Owari. Tales of his youth are filled with anecdotes that highlight his disregard for convention, such as his penchant for mingling with commoners, his disinterest in the rigid formalities of the samurai class, and his habit of engaging in eccentric, sometimes reckless behaviour. This rebelliousness was not just an expression of youthful defiance, but also an early indication of his willingness to challenge established norms and think outside the confines of tradition. It was clear, even in his younger years, that Nobunaga was not one to follow in the footsteps of those who came before him. He was destined to carve his own path. The death of Nobunaga's father, Oda Nobuhide, in 1551, plunged the Oda clan into a period of intense internal strife. Nobunaga, still a young man, was thrust into the treacherous world of clan politics, where power struggles and betrayal were rife. His ascension to leadership was far from smooth. Many within the clan doubted his capability to lead, given his reputation as the Fool of Owari. Rival factions within the Oda clan, including his own relatives, sought to seize control, believing Nobunaga to be an unfit and weak leader. However, they had underestimated the young daimyo. Nobunaga, though unconventional in many ways, was also fiercely intelligent and possessed a sharp strategic mind. He He quickly recognized that to secure his position, he would need to act decisively and ruthlessly. In the face of these challenges, Nobunaga demonstrated his resolve by consolidating power through a series of bold moves. He neutralized internal threats by eliminating or subduing rival factions within his clan, showing no mercy to those who opposed him. Externally, he faced pressure from neighbouring clans who saw an opportunity to exploit the Oda clan's internal turmoil. However, Nobunaga's military acumen and innovative tactics allowed him to fend off these external threats, gradually solidifying his control over Owari province. One of his most significant early victories was against his own brother, Nobuyuki, who had conspired against him. Nobunaga's triumph in this internal conflict not only secured his leadership within the Oda clan, but also marked the beginning of his rise as a formidable force in the Sengoku period. His ability to navigate the treacherous waters of feudal politics, combined with his willingness to break with tradition and act with boldness, set the stage for his future conquests and the eventual unification of Japan under his rule. The rise of Oda Nobunaga to power was a tale woven with ambition, conflict, and brilliant strategy. A journey that began with the death of his father and culminated in the unification of a fractured Japan. The succession of Owari province was the first major challenge that Nobunaga faced on this path, setting the stage for his eventual dominance. When his father, Oda Nobuhide, passed away in 1551, the Oda clan was left in a precarious position. The power vacuum created by Nobuhide's death led to a fierce succession struggle, with various factions within the clan eyeing the leadership. Nobunaga, despite being the eldest son and the natural heir, faced considerable opposition from within his own family, most notably from his younger brother, Nobuyuki. Nobuyuki, backed by other influential members of the clan, believed that Nobunaga's erratic behaviour and unconventional approach made him unfit to lead. The internal strife that ensued threatened to tear the clan apart. However, Nobunaga, with a mix of cunning and determination, managed to outmaneuver his rivals. The conflict with Nobuyuki was particularly intense, with the brothers clashing both politically and militarily. In a decisive confrontation, Nobunaga crushed Nobuyuki's forces, demonstrating his ruthless resolve by eventually executing his brother. This act not only solidified his leadership, but also sent a clearer message to any would-be challengers within the Oda clan. Nobunaga would brook no opposition, and he was willing to go to any lengths to secure his position. The victory over his brother marked the beginning of Nobunaga's consolidation of power in Owari province, allowing him to turn his attention to external threats and expand his influence beyond his clan's traditional borders. The Battle of Okazama in 1560 was a pivotal moment in Nobunaga's rise to power, a battle that would define his reputation as a military genius and secure his place as one of the most formidable daimyos of the Sengoku period. At this time, Nobunaga faced the imminent threat of Imagawa Yoshimoto, a powerful warlord who commanded a much larger and better equipped army. Imagawa's forces, numbering around 25,000, were marching towards Kyoto, with the intent of toppling the Ashikaga shogunate and establishing Imagawa's dominance over Japan. To achieve this, Imagawa needed to pass through Owari, a province he viewed as a minor obstacle in his path. Nobunaga, commanding a force of just 3,000 to 4,000 men, was severely outnumbered, and most observers believed that the Oda clan would be crushed under the weight of Imagawa's army. However, Nobunaga was not a leader to be underestimated. He devised a daring plan that would turn the tide of battle in his favour. Instead of meeting Imagawa's forces head-on in a conventional engagement, Nobunaga opted for a surprise attack, exploiting the overconfidence of his enemy. As Imagawa's troops made camp at Okazama, celebrating their previous victories with sake and revelry, Nobunaga seized the opportunity. On a stormy night, he led his troops through the cover of darkness and the rain, positioning them strategically around Imagawa's camp. The sudden downpour worked to Nobunaga's advantage, masking the sound of his approaching forces and disorienting the enemy. When the attack was launched, it was swift and devastating. Nobunaga's men descended upon the unsuspecting Imagawa troops with ferocity, cutting through their ranks and sowing chaos. The centerpiece of the assault was the direct attack on Imagawa Yoshimoto himself. Nobunaga's forces managed to reach Imagawa's tent, and in the ensuing melee, Imagawa was killed, his head taken as a trophy. The victory at Okazama was nothing short of miraculous. Nobunaga, against all odds, had annihilated a vastly superior force and eliminated one of the most powerful daimyos in Japan. This battle not only secured Nobunaga's control over Owari province, but also catapulted him into the national spotlight. The audacity and brilliance of his tactics earned him widespread recognition and respect among both allies and rivals. The defeat of Imagawa Yoshimoto sent shockwaves throughout Japan, altering the balance of power and setting the stage for Nobunaga's further conquests. This victory marked the beginning of Nobunaga's ascent, as he now had the opportunity to forge strategic alliances and expand his influence beyond the borders of Owari. Following the Battle of Okazama, Nobunaga understood the importance of building strong alliances to sustain and expand his power. One of his most significant allies was Tokugawa Ieyasu, a young and ambitious daimyo who controlled the neighbouring province of Mikawa. The alliance between Nobunaga and Ieyasu was both strategic and mutually beneficial. Recognising each other's strengths, they formed a pact that would become one of the most enduring and consequential partnerships in Japanese history. This alliance not only helped secure Nobunaga's eastern flank, but also provided him with a valuable ally in his subsequent campaigns. Together, they would go on to challenge other powerful daimyos and gradually extend their influence across central Japan. Nobunaga also employed marriage alliances as a tool to strengthen his position. He arranged marriages between members of his family and those of other influential clans, thereby securing the loyalty of key allies. One notable marriage was that of Nobunaga's sister, Oichi, to Asai Nagamasa, the lord of the Asai clan. Although this alliance would later lead to conflict, it initially helped Nobunaga consolidate his power in the early stages of his expansion. These diplomatic maneuvers, combined with his military successes, allowed Nobunaga to alliances that would support his ambitions and provide the necessary stability to pursue his broader goals. As Nobunaga's power grew, he focused on consolidating control over Owari province and expanding into neighbouring territories. His approach was both methodical and ruthless. Nobunaga implemented a series of administrative reforms aimed at centralising power and increasing the efficiency of his government. He reduced the influence of traditional feudal lords, placing more authority in the hands of his loyal retainers and ensuring that all aspects of governance were tightly controlled. Nobunaga also restructured the military, creating a more disciplined and effective fighting force that was capable of executing his strategic vision. He introduced new tactics and technologies, such as the use of firearms, which he employed with devastating effect in subsequent battles. Nobunaga's expansionist ambitions led him to target the provinces surrounding Owari. He launched campaigns to subdue the neighbouring daimyos, often employing a combination of military force and strategic alliances to bring them under his control. One of his key conquests was Mino province, which he captured after a prolonged and difficult campaign against the Saito clan. The capture of Mino was a significant milestone, as it provided Nobunaga with a strong base from which to launch further operations into central Japan. With each victory, Nobunaga's power and influence grew, and his reputation as a formidable and unyielding leader was solidified. Oda Nobunaga's rise to power was marked by his ability to overcome both internal and external challenges through a combination of ruthless determination, innovative strategy, and shrewd diplomacy. His succession as the leader of the Oda clan, solidified by the defeat of his brother Nobuyuki and the quelling of internal dissent, laid the foundation for his future conquests. The Battle of Okehazama was a pivotal moment that established Nobunaga as a force to be reckoned with, demonstrating his ability to achieve the impossible through sheer audacity and tactical brilliance. His strategic alliances, particularly with Tokugawa Ieyasu, provided the support needed to extend his influence beyond Owari, while his administrative and military reforms strengthened his grip on power. As Nobunaga continued to expand his territory, he set the stage for the unification of Japan, a goal that would drive his relentless pursuit of power in the years to come. With his power base secure and his ambitions clear, Nobunaga turned his attention to a formidable obstacle in his path: the Saito clan, powerful rulers of Mino province, who held the key stronghold of Inabayama Castle. Perched atop Mount Inaba, this fortress was not only a symbol of the Saito clan's dominance, but also a strategic asset that offered a commanding view over the surrounding lands. For Nobunaga, now a rising force in Japanese politics, the capture of this castle was crucial to his broader ambitions of unifying the fragmented nation. Thus, in 1567, he launched a campaign against the Saito, a campaign that would test his military acumen and strategic foresight like never before. Nobunaga's approach to capturing Inabayama Castle was as innovative as it was audacious. Understanding the formidable natural defences of the castle, he chose not to engage in a direct assault, which would have resulted in heavy casualties. Instead, Nobunaga strategy of psychological warfare, coupled with a surprise attack. He secretly constructed a new path up the mountain, bypassing the heavily guarded main route. In a sudden and well-coordinated nighttime assault, Nobunaga's forces infiltrated the castle, catching the defenders off guard and overwhelming them. This victory was not just a tactical success, but also a masterstroke of military ingenuity. Following the capture of Inabayama Castle, Nobunaga renamed it Gifu Castle, a name inspired by the Chinese phrase Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor, reflecting his grand vision of uniting Japan under his rule. This renaming symbolized the dawn of a new era, where Nobunaga's authority began to take root across the country. Gifu Castle would become a pivotal base for his operations, representing both his strategic dominance and his aspirations of imperial power. As Nobunaga solidified his power, the stage was set for one of the most significant confrontations in his military career, the Battle of Nagashino in 1575. This battle not only marked a turning point in Japanese warfare, but also tested the strength of the Oda Tokugawa alliance against the formidable Takeda clan, renowned for their cavalry charges and battlefield prowess. Led by the fearsome general Takeda Katsuyori, the Takeda clan sought to shatter the power of Nobunaga and his ally Tokugawa Ieyasu and expand their influence across central Japan. The stakes could not have been higher. Nobunaga, ever the innovator, recognized the need to counter the Takeda's cavalry with an equally formidable tactic. He turned to firearms, which had been introduced to Japan by Portuguese traders in the previous decades, but were still relatively new to the battlefield. Nobunaga's genius lay not in the mere use of these weapons, but in his application of volley fire tactics. He arranged his troops in 3 lines, with each line firing in succession, creating a continuous barrage of bullets. To protect his gunners from the ferocious cavalry charges, Nobunaga also constructed wooden palisades, turning the battlefield into a killing field for the Takeda horses and men. The results were devastating. The Takeda cavalry, accustomed to breaking enemy lines with their sheer force, found themselves mowed down by relentless gunfire. The battle ended in a decisive victory for Nobunaga, marking the beginning of the end for the Takeda clan. The significance of the Battle of Nagashino extended beyond its immediate military outcome. It heralded a new era in Japanese warfare, where traditional samurai tactics were increasingly supplanted by the use of firearms and coordinated infantry maneuvers. This battle not only solidified Nobunaga's reputation as a brilliant military strategist, but also played a crucial role in the eventual unification of Japan under centralized rule. However, Nobunaga's relentless drive for power inevitably brought him into conflict with the Atsai and Asakura clans, former allies who would soon become formidable enemies. The roots of this conflict lay in the shifting alliances and betrayals that characterized the Sengoku period. Initially aligned through marriage, Nobunaga's sister, Oichi, was married to Atsai Nagamasa. This alliance began to crumble as the Atsai and Asakura clans grew increasingly wary of Nobunaga's expanding influence. The tension culminated in the Battle of Anagawa in 1570, a fierce and bloody engagement that would determine the fate of both clans. his ally Tokugawa Ieyasu faced off against the combined forces of the Atsai and Asakura. The battle was marked by intense hand-to-hand combat along the banks of the Anagawa River, with neither side willing to yield. However, Nobunaga's superior numbers and strategic coordination eventually overwhelmed his opponents. The battle was a critical victory, not just in terms of immediate territorial gains, but in demonstrating Nobunaga's ability to crush those who opposed him, regardless of past alliances. In the years that followed, Nobunaga continued his campaign against the remnants of the Atsai and Asakura clans, systematically dismantling their power bases. The destruction of these clans was more than just the elimination of enemies. It was a strategic consolidation of power that enabled Nobunaga to secure his holdings in central Japan and move closer to his ultimate goal of national unification. The fall of the Atsai and Asakura clans also served as a grim warning to other regional lords who might consider opposing Nobunaga's authority. Among the many military campaigns that defined Oda Nobunaga's relentless pursuit of power, the siege of Ishiyama Honganji stands out for its sheer duration and the determination of both sides. This fortress, located in what is now Osaka, was the stronghold of the Ikko-Ikki, a militant Buddhist sect that had long resisted the rule of samurai warlords. The sect's followers were fiercely devoted, and their fortress was exceptionally well fortified, making it one of the most formidable obstacles in Nobunaga's quest for dominance. The siege, which lasted from 1570 to 1580, was not merely a military confrontation, but also a symbolic struggle against the religious and social forces that threatened Nobunaga's vision of a unified Japan. Nobunaga employed a range of tactics in his attempts to subdue the fortress, including blockades, direct assaults, and even cutting off supplies to starve out the defenders. Despite these efforts, the defenders of Ishiyama Honganji held out for nearly a decade, their resilience becoming legendary. The eventual surrender of Ishiyama Honganji in 1580 marked the end of one of the longest and most grueling sieges in Japanese history. Nobunaga's victory here was not just a military triumph, but also a significant step in weakening the power of religious institutions that opposed his rule. The fall of the fortress allowed Nobunaga to further consolidate his power in the region, moving him closer to his ultimate goal of unifying Japan under his command. As Nobunaga's territorial control expanded, so did his need for a more efficient and formidable military. His military reforms were pivotal in transforming his forces from a regional power into an unstoppable war machine capable of unifying Japan. Central to these reforms was the restructuring of his armies, which shifted the balance of power from the traditional samurai class to a more organized and professional military force. Nobunaga introduced a system of conscription, allowing him to field large armies composed not only of samurai but also of peasants trained as soldiers. This move democratized military service and enabled Nobunaga to mobilize a much larger fighting force than his rivals, further solidifying his dominance. Nobunaga's foresight extended beyond just manpower. He was one of the earliest Japanese leaders to recognize the potential of firearms in warfare. While matchlock muskets had been introduced to Japan by Portuguese traders century, it was Nobunaga who fully integrated them into his military strategy. He didn't just arm his troops with these weapons, he revolutionized their use on the battlefield. Nobunaga's innovative deployment of firearms in coordinated volleys, as seen at the Battle of Nagashino, allowed his armies to decimate traditional cavalry charges, altering the course of Japanese warfare. In addition to firearms, Nobunaga embraced other new technologies and tactical innovations. He made extensive use of fortifications, not just as defensive structures, but as offensive tools in his campaigns. Nobunaga's use of field artillery was particularly groundbreaking. By incorporating cannons into his sieges, he was able to batter down even the most formidable fortresses. His strategic application of these technologies, combined with his reformed military structure, allowed Nobunaga to defeat larger and more established armies, paving the way for his unrelenting march toward national domination. However, Nobunaga's vision extended far beyond the battlefield. He understood that military might alone would not suffice to build a stable and prosperous state. Economic vitality was equally essential. One of Nobunaga's most significant economic reforms was his policy on free trade. By abolishing toll barriers that had previously fragmented the Japanese economy, Nobunaga facilitated the flow of goods across his territories. This move not only boosted commerce, but also undermined the power of local warlords who had relied on tolls for revenue, further consolidating Nobunaga's control and strengthening the economic foundation of his expanding domain. Another cornerstone of Nobunaga's economic policy was the standardization of currency. By introducing a consistent currency system, he reduced the economic fragmentation that had plagued Japan for centuries. This standardization made trade more predictable and reliable, which, in turn, stimulated both domestic and foreign commerce. Nobunaga's reforms also extended to the promotion of industry. He actively encouraged the development of various industries, particularly in the production of arms and textiles, which were critical to both his military campaigns and the overall economic strength of his domains. Nobunaga's economic policies had profound social implications, particularly for the peasantry and merchant classes. By removing barriers to trade and encouraging industry, Nobunaga inadvertently elevated the status of merchants, who began to play a more significant role in the economy. This shift contributed to the gradual erosion of the rigid class structure that had defined Japanese society for centuries. Meanwhile, the peasantry, who were often conscripted into Nobunaga's armies, found themselves with new opportunities, both on the battlefield and in the burgeoning economy. While Nobunaga's policies were not entirely altruistic, many were designed to strengthen his own power. They nonetheless laid the groundwork for a more dynamic and economically integrated Japan. Oda Nobunaga's relationship with religion was as complex as it was pragmatic. Unlike many of his contemporaries, Nobunaga was not bound by traditional religious pieties, which allowed him to approach religion as a tool of statecraft. His most notorious religious policy was his ruthless suppression of militant Buddhist sects, particularly those that posed a direct challenge to his authority. The destruction of the Enryakuji Temple, a powerful Buddhist fortress on Mount Hiei, was emblematic of Nobunaga's approach. In 1570, 1371, after the monks of Enryakuji repeatedly defied him, Nobunaga ordered the temple's destruction, resulting in the massacre of thousands of monks. This act sent a clear message. Nobunaga would tolerate no opposition, religious or otherwise, further consolidating his power over Japan. Despite his hostility towards militant Buddhism, Nobunaga was not anti-religion per se. He saw the strategic value in supporting Christianity, which was gaining a foothold in Japan through the efforts of European missionaries. By patronizing Christianity, Nobunaga sought to weaken the influence of the Buddhist establishment, which had long been a powerful political force. His support for the new religion was not rooted in personal belief, but in its potential to serve as a counterbalance to Buddhist power. Nobunaga even granted land and protection to Christian missionaries, recognizing their potential to disrupt the existing religious order in his favor. Nobunaga's religious policies were characterized by a pragmatic approach that prioritized political stability and the consolidation of his power. By weakening the Buddhist institutions that had long resisted central authority, and by promoting a rival faith, Nobunaga reshaped the religious landscape of Japan. His actions laid the groundwork for a more secular, state-centered authority, setting the stage for the eventual unification of Japan under a centralized government. Despite these achievements, Oda Nobunaga's meteoric rise to power was brought to a sudden and dramatic end in what is now one of the most infamous episodes in Japanese history, the incident at Honnoji. By 1582, Nobunaga was on the cusp of achieving his lifelong ambition of unifying Japan. His forces had crushed numerous rivals, and his authority was largely uncontested across the country. Yet, even as his power reached its zenith, dark clouds of betrayal were gathering within his own ranks, most notably around Akechi Mitsuhide, one of his trusted generals. The reasons behind Mitsuhide's betrayal remain shrouded in mystery, with historians offering various theories. Some suggest that Mitsuhide, humiliated by Nobunaga in earlier encounters, sought revenge. Others believe that Mitsuhide may have acted out of fear, political ambition, or even out of loyalty to a higher cause, seeing Nobunaga's increasingly ruthless tactics as a threat to the nation. Whatever his motivations, Mitsuhide's plot unfolded with chilling precision. On the morning of June 21st, 1582, Nobunaga was resting at Honnoji, a temple in Kyoto, with only a small contingent of guards, having assumed he was safe in the heart of his domain. Mitsuhide, meanwhile, had gathered his forces under the pretense of preparing for a campaign against the Mori clan in western Japan. However, instead of marching west, Mitsuhide turned his army towards Kyoto with lethal intent. As dawn broke, Mitsuhide's forces descended upon Honnoji in a surprise attack that caught Nobunaga completely off guard. Surrounded and vastly outnumbered, Nobunaga realized that escape was impossible. In the final moments of his life, Nobunaga displayed the same unwavering resolve that had defined his military career. Rather than allowing himself to be captured or killed by his enemies, he chose to take his own life in the samurai tradition of seppuku. As the flames engulfed the temple, Nobunaga's life came to a violent and tragic end. The temple, a place of peace and contemplation, became his fiery tomb, and with his death, the dream of a unified Japan was thrown into uncertainty. The ambush at Honnoji was not just the end of a man, but the abrupt halt of a transformative era in Japanese history. Nobunaga's death sent shockwaves through the land, and the news of his demise spread rapidly, plunging his followers into despair and chaos. In the chaotic aftermath of Nobunaga's death, a sudden and dangerous power vacuum emerged, leaving his generals scrambling to secure their own positions in the fractured political landscape. Akechi Mitsuhide, the orchestrator of Nobunaga's downfall, declared himself the new ruler, but his victory was fleeting. Within days, Mitsuhide faced fierce opposition from those loyal to Nobunaga, particularly Toyotomi Hideyoshi, another of Nobunaga's top generals, who had been in the midst of a campaign in western Japan when he received word of the Honnoji incident. Oda Nobunaga's relentless pursuit of power and his strategic military campaigns were instrumental in laying the foundation for the eventual unification of Japan. During a time when the country was fragmented into warring states, Nobunaga's decisive victories and innovative reforms significantly weakened the power of rival Daimyo and dismantled the centuries-old feudal system that had kept Japan divided. Though he did not live to see the full realization of his vision, his actions set the stage for his successors to complete the unification process. Building upon Nobunaga's legacy, Toyotomi Hideyoshi acted with remarkable speed and decisiveness. He returned east with his army in a forced march that caught Mitsuhide off guard. Less than 2 weeks after Nobunaga's death, Hideyoshi confronted and defeated Mitsuhide at the Battle of Yamazaki, avenging his fallen lord and seizing control of Nobunaga's former territories. Hideyoshi's rapid rise to power marked the beginning of a new chapter in Japanese history. He went on to consolidate the fragmented nation, continuing Nobunaga's mission of unification, and ultimately bringing the country under his control. However, the path to unification was fraught with even greater challenges, as the death of Oda Nobunaga had unleashed a storm of ambition and intrigue that would shape Japan's future. Toyotomi Hideyoshi, one of Nobunaga's most loyal and capable generals, built upon the groundwork laid by his former lord. After avenging Nobunaga's death and consolidating power, Hideyoshi continued the mission of unifying Japan, successfully bringing the majority of the country under his control. Following Hideyoshi's death, Tokugawa Ieyasu, another of Nobunaga's key allies, emerged victorious in the struggle for power, eventually establishing the Tokugawa shogunate. This marked the beginning of a peaceful and stable era that lasted over 250 years, often credited as the final realization of Nobunaga's grand ambition. Thus, while Nobunaga's life was cut short, his influence endured through the achievements of those he inspired and empowered, making him a pivotal figure in the unification of Japan. Nobunaga's impact extended beyond his military and political achievements, leaving a lasting legacy in Japanese culture. As a patron of the arts, he supported various cultural practices that would become emblematic of the era. An ardent admirer of Noh theatre, Nobunaga's patronage elevated this traditional form of Japanese drama to a prestigious art form enjoyed by the samurai elite. Additionally, he played a significant role in the popularization of the tea ceremony, a cultural ritual deeply associated with Zen Buddhist philosophy. This practice, emphasizing simplicity, discipline, and aesthetic appreciation, became an integral aspect of the social life of the warrior class, further solidifying Nobunaga's enduring influence on Japan's cultural landscape. Here are the rewritten paragraphs with improved flow between them. Nobunaga's influence extended to architecture as well, with the construction of Azuchi Castle standing as one of his most notable contributions. Located near Kyoto, Azuchi Castle was more than just a military fortress. It was a symbol of Nobunaga's power and vision. The castle was a marvel of design, featuring multiple stories, grand halls, and intricate carvings, blending functionality with artistic expression. It became a prototype for future Japanese castles, influencing architectural trends long after its destruction. Nobunaga's patronage of the arts and architecture reflected his understanding of power as not only a military force, but also a cultural one, shaping the very fabric of Japanese society and its perception of authority. Oda Nobunaga's legacy, however, is a complex tapestry woven from both admiration and controversy, leading to varied interpretations by historians and scholars over the centuries. On one hand, Nobunaga is often hailed as a visionary leader whose military genius and bold reforms helped drag Japan out of the chaos of the Sengoku period and set it on a path towards unification. His innovative use of firearms, strategic alliances, and economic policies are frequently cited as examples of his forward-thinking approach, which transcended the norms of his time. However, Nobunaga's legacy is also marked by his reputation as a brutal and ruthless warlord. His merciless suppression of opposition, particularly his campaigns against militant Buddhist sects and the slaughter at Mount Yi, have cast a shadow over his achievements. This duality in Nobunaga's character has led to a polarized view of his rule, with some seeing him as a necessary force for progress, and others as a tyrant who sowed terror and destruction. Despite these differing perspectives, Nobunaga's influence on Japanese history remains indisputable. He is a figure who continues to captivate the popular imagination, featuring prominently in literature, film, and other forms of media. Whether seen as a hero or a villain, Oda Nobunaga's enduring legacy is that of a transformative leader whose impact on Japan's political and cultural landscape is still felt today. Oda Nobunaga's legacy is one of extraordinary ambition and profound influence, and as I've explored in this video, he forever altered the course of Japanese history. From his groundbreaking military reforms to his decisive battles, Nobunaga's achievements laid the essential groundwork for the unification of Japan. He was a trailblazer in both warfare and governance, introducing firearms and professional armies, dismantling the feudal toll system, and fostering economic growth through free trade and currency standardization. His relentless drive to consolidate power and his innovative strategies made him a central figure in the Sengoku period, setting the stage for the eventual unification under his successors, Toyotomi Hideyoshi and Tokugawa Ieyasu. Nobunaga's role as a pioneer of Japan's unification and modernization truly cannot be overstated. He was the catalyst for the transformation of a fragmented nation into a more unified and powerful state. As I reflect on Nobunaga's life and legacy, it's clear that he remains one of the most complex and enigmatic figures in Japanese history. His rule was marked by both visionary leadership and ruthless tactics, leaving behind a legacy that continues to be both revered and debated. Nobunaga was a leader who wasn't afraid to challenge the status quo, often through brutal means in his quest for power and progress. While some see him as a tyrant who imposed his will through force and fear, others view him as a necessary force for change, a man who dragged Japan out of chaos and toward a new era of unity and strength. This duality is what makes Nobunaga's story so compelling and enduring. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the life of Oda Nobunaga. If you enjoyed this exploration into Japan's past and want to learn more about other historical figures and events, be sure to subscribe to the ASMR History channel. Wherever you are in the world, I hope you have a wonderful day and or night. The world is tough out there, so many questions about the future, but I hope my content is able to take you away from all of that, to bring you to a world of history and relaxation